300 kilometers off the continental shelf, the Poseidon's Fortune held its position against the restless Atlantic.
The salvage crew performed their pre-descent rituals with the deep, quiet efficiency of long experience.
At the center of this mechanical congregation sat the Eurydice, a sphere of titanium built to survive the abyss.
Their target lay 4,000 meters below. The SS Imperator, lost in 1918 with a cargo of immense value.
At AO 0200 hours, the descent began. The submersible hung for a moment between the ship and the Black Sea. Then the winch released, and she was swallowed by the Atlantic, without ceremony.
Inside the pressure hull, 3 bodies existed in intimate proximity, surrounded by the hum of life support.
The last traces of sunlight vanished within minutes, replaced by an eternal blue-black twilight.
At 400 meters, they passed through the thermocline, a membrane into the abyss's permanent cold.
The sonar painted its picture in sound waves. An angular anomaly appeared on the flat abyssal plain.
They navigated the wreck with glacial care, avoiding sediment clouds and tangled debris.
Access required cutting. The thermal lance burned magnesium, parting the aged steel in a fury of light and heat. Inside Hold 3, the manifest's promise was kept. The cargo waited, suspended in time. Each crate was assessed with surgical precision. The wood was soft, the contents fragile after 50 years.
They deployed lifting bags, synthetic bladders, whose buoyancy would gently raise the treasure.
The first crate ascended, a rectangular ghost drawn from its tomb towards the distant surface.
The ascent reversed their journey through the layers of the ocean, each zone a step back towards the world of light.
The mother ship appeared above them, a leviathan of steel, blotting out the sun. On deck, the winches howled, converting raw power into precise mechanical lift. The deck became an examination theater. Now came the moment of revelation.
Opening the first crate required hours of patience. The waterlogged wood threatened to crumble at a touch.
The first handbag emerged. The burgundy leather, tanned a century ago, looked as if it had been made yesterday.
Every stitch was precise, every seam a testament to an artisan's hand in a vanished era. They cleaned with archaeological care, dissolving salt and applying oils to restore what time and the sea had preserved.
A briefcase opened to reveal silk lining and the ghost of documents, the blurred blue fingerprints of a lost journey.
A traveling bag held its owner's prepared life. A journal, cosmetics, gloves.
By the 4th day, the deck held a museum's worth of preserved luxury, a spectrum of tanning artistry laid bare.
The crew stood in a silent assembly. The silence held the weight of the depth, the risk, and the sheer improbability of it all.
These were not just goods. They were time capsules, making the catastrophe of 1918 feel permeable, almost recent.
The moment passed. Men returned to their tasks, but the memory of that silent recognition would remain. The final piece was a massive steamer trunk, its lid sealed shut by pressure and time. It exhaled a breath of decades-old decay, before revealing a trove of smaller, perfectly preserved items. As evening fell, the ship turned for home. Their salvage would be remembered in journals and museums.
Eight colossal chains held the ship in mathematical defiance of the restless sea.
In the control room, they tracked the submersible's progress through layers of data and acoustic echoes.
The pilot flooded the ballast tanks in precise increments, becoming heavier than the water that held them.
In the absolute dark, the submersible was a mere whisper of technology falling through eternity.
The hull creaked, speaking the language of stress, as the ocean pressed in with unimaginable force.
The wreck's silhouette grew definitive, a stark, geometric intruder in a realm of soft curves.
There, on the stern, the name was still legible beneath the growth, a ghost from another age of travel. They glided past the ruins of luxury, a teacup sitting ready, a chair waiting for a guest who never returned.
3. The mine blast had sealed its fate, but also preserved it behind twisted steel.
The lance came alive, burning at temperatures that turned seawater to plasma, slicing through history. In the cockpit glow, their faces were etched with the reflected fire of their work.
A slab of history gave way, collapsing inward in a silent, weighty ballet.
And there they were, row upon row, stacked with the neatness of the last longshoreman's shift.
The stenciled date, March 1918, was as clear as the day it was painted, yet the wood was soft as peat.
The lifting bag filled, a lung of air from the world above, giving buoyancy to the past.
The cycle repeated. Descent, location, attachment, ascent. A mechanical rhythm against the abyss's silence. Each emergence was a birth, a dripping, alien object returning to the realm of air and light.
The deck crew moved as one organism, guiding the precious, swinging loads with practiced choreography.
Nothing was left to chance. Each crate was lashed down like a piece of the ship itself.
Between cycles, the submersible was cleansed of the abyss, ready to return to the dark.
In the mess, the silence was companionable. Words weren't needed. The shared endeavor was enough. The final descent began at dawn. The atmosphere had shifted from tension to solemn procedure.
They took one last artifact, a small, forgotten sample, a whisper of the whole. Their final ascent was a straight line towards the sun, a retreat from a world not meant for men.
With the last crate secured, the machinery fell still. The physical extraction was over.
The deck transformed from a recovery platform to a conservation laboratory under the open sky.
The first opening was the most delicate. The pressure was no longer depth, but historical preservation.
The protective oilcloth had fused into a monolithic shield, a testament to time and pressure.
Underneath, the packing paper survived, a fragile cushion that had done its job for half a century.
She turned the bag in the light, examining the patina of survival, the perfect, aged stiffness.
Each item told its own story, of fashion, of function, of a person preparing for a life across the ocean.
A pressed flower, a final token of love or memory, vanished in a breath, leaving only its ghost on the silk.
The journal's pages were a Rorschach test of water-damaged ink, its stories now forever encrypted.
The science was as precise as the craft. Different tanning methods required different chemical rescues.
Big, salt-roughened hands performed work of museum-quality delicacy. There was no contradiction.
Work continued around the clock. The deck was an island of light in the vast, sleeping ocean.
At sunrise, the entire ship's complement came to sea. It was no longer a salvage, it was an exhibition.
The trunk's lock was a work of art, its beauty surviving the utilitarian purpose of the deep hold.
The seal gave way with a sound like breaking stone, a release of tension held for generations.
The trunk was a master sample case, a leathersmith's catalogue of exquisite miniatures, perfectly ordered.
From above, the scene was a perfect tableau. Human scale against industrial might, cradling rescued beauty.
The unpacking reversed. Each piece was swaddled for its next journey, to conservators, historians, museums.
The original crates, their purpose fulfilled, were now artifacts themselves, destined for study or display.
A photographer captured it all, creating a new archive of the moment, and the past met the present.
With a deep thrum, the engines engaged. The ship turned its bow towards home, leaving coordinates to the sea.
Every man stole a last glance astern, a silent farewell to the piece of ocean floor that had defined their mission. The submersible received its own meticulous care, prepared for the next descent into darkness.
The captain made his final log entry, adding another X to a chart filled with the ghosts of other recoveries. The treasure was sealed away, not in a watery hold, but in a steel box, ready for its next chapter.
So I told him, that's not a buoy, that's my wife. And he said, well, you married a whale.
In the quiet, you'd catch them reflecting, holding their own modern things, feeling the thread of connection.
The return voyage was a decompression, a mental and physical ascent back to the surface world.
Land appeared, a brown and green line separating the gray sea from the pale sky. The mission was truly done.
The ship's bell rang, marking not just the hour, but the end of an extraordinary chapter.
Rituals of return began. The grime of hard work was washed away, making them visitors to their own ship.
Official seals were fixed, transforming the cargo from salvage into legal, historical property.
The harbor pilot came aboard, bringing with him the first breath of the world they were returning to.
The open ocean gave way to the ordered chaos of a working port, a different kind of wilderness.
On the bridge, command was a quiet conversation, a transfer of authority from the deep to the shallow.
The deck crew prepared the lines, the final connection between the ship and the solid, unmoving land.
Lines flew through the air, were caught, and pulled taut. The voyage was over. The ship was home.
The gangway descended, a bridge between two worlds. The representatives of museums and history waited.
The captain greeted the conservator. Their handshake was a transfer of custody, of trust, of history.
In the stark light of the pier, the container opened again, revealing its orderly, scientific interior.
The first crate began its last short journey, from the ship to a climate-controlled truck waiting on the pier.
The crew performed their final service, a careful ballet, moving the past from sea to shore.
There was relief in completion, and a subtle void where the mission's intense focus had lived.
The transaction was completed not with currency, but with signatures on a digital screen. It was official.
The truck rolled away, taking the Velvet Abyss's secrets into the heart of the modern city.
The crew scattered, each to their own life, their shared experience now a bond of memory. The captain took a last, long look at her quiet command. The ship rested, already becoming just a vessel again.
The goods found their new home, a sterile, quiet laboratory within a temple of history.
The process began again, but now with the infinite patience and resources of a museum.
Science interrogated the salvage. Every fiber, every stitch was documented, measured, and understood.
Historians connected the objects to names, to workshops, to the very hands that had stitched them.
Chemistry revealed the artisan's recipes, the specific bark extracts, the mineral baths of a century past. Exhibit designers wove the narrative, the disaster, the depth, the recovery, the preservation.
The objects were prepared for their public debut, to be seen not as salvage, but as art and history.
The exhibition opened. The public gathered, peering into cases that were, in a way, viewports into the abyss.
Visitors saw their own reflections ghosted over the artifacts, connecting their present to that interrupted past.
The modern salvers were given their due, their names etched beside those of the 1918 craftsmen.
For some, it was more than history. It was a tangible thread to a world their grandparents knew.
The captain observed from the shadows, his part in the story complete, the circle closed.
At night, the gallery returned to silence. The objects rested, no longer lost, but found and cherished.
The work continued in quiet rooms, scholars piecing together fragments of lives from water-stained ink.
Poseidon's fortune was already preparing for its next mission. The ocean always offered another mystery.
For the crew, the memory became a private touchstone, a story to tell on quiet evenings. And far below, on the abyssal plain, the wreck site settled back into its eternal rhythm. Life reclaimed the void.
A new generation learned the story of technology and tenacity, of the cold deep and the things it keeps.
The leather itself was the final witness. Its preserved grain held the story of the animal.
The ocean remained, vast and indifferent, a velvet abyss keeping its secrets and yielding them only grudgingly.
The knowledge entered the permanent record. The salvage became data, study, a footnote in maritime archaeology.
The event became a lesson, a case study in deep-sea archaeology, preservation science, and human ambition.
The Eurydice waited, a veteran of the deep, its scars the only map of the pressures it had known.
In the city above, the cycle of craft and commerce continued, unaware of the time capsules in the dark below.
They were rescued, studied, displayed. But in their stillness, they still spoke of the cold, the dark.
In the deep night, the artifacts slept, visited only by the custodians of their new, quiet home.
The wreck's location was now a fixed point in the digital ocean, a pin in the vast, blue map.
The past whispered to the future. Old designs sparked new ideas in a cycle of inspiration.
Paper trails from the past were re-examined. the dry bureaucracy of loss given new, tangible meaning.
Above the grave, the commercial world moved on, giants of steel following routes mapped by lost ships.
The sea never left them. Those who had worked the deep carried its memory in their gaze.
Technology allowed the public to take the descent themselves, a virtual journey to the real abyss.
The crushing pressure was replaced by a different kind of precision, the constant, gentle hug of ideal preservation.
The story was recorded, the captain's calm voice narrating the tension and triumph for a different audience.
Replicas were built, allowing hands to touch what the originals could only be seen behind glass.
A new generation learned the skills of deep-sea salvage without ever getting their feet wet.
The mission was immortalized not just in objects, but in brass and etched words on a wall.
Time passed in a new way for the artifacts, marked by the gentle sweep of sunlight, not the crushing weight of centuries.
Science borrowed from the past, creating new preservatives inspired by the very materials that survived.
For a few, the connection was visceral and personal. A ghost from a family story made suddenly heartbreakingly real.
Knowledge was passed on. The hard-won experience of the dive became a lesson for the next explorer.
The entire endeavor was digitized, backed up, stored, a memory of the memory, safe from physical decay.
Artists bridged the gap, giving life to the ghostly sonar silhouette, reminding us of the beauty before the fall.
The torch was passed. Newer, smarter machines went deeper, but they stood on the shoulders of simpler spheres. The elements still reached for them, but now through layers of glass and climate control, a distant echo of the sea.
The crew's pride was captured in a simple embroidered patch, a symbol of their unique and unlikely quest.
For children, it was simply a treasure hunt, the purest version of the story, unburdened by depth or decades.
The story inspired art of its own. The technology and the journey refracted through a new creative lens. The official record was emotionless. The cold facts of depth, time, and weather held the heat of the experience within.
Even the water itself was a sample, a bottled piece of the environment that had been both tomb and preservative. The map told the story of ambition and interruption, a straight line brutally cut short.
Technology's lightest touch performed the final cleansing, a beam of energy erasing the last traces of the sea. Where history was silent, fiction rushed in to fill the gaps, to give voice to the anonymous and the lost.
The equipment moved on. The A-frame that had lifted the past now waited for the next future wreck.
Each visitor was counted, each gaze a small validation of the years of effort, risk, and science.
They elevated the minute details, asking us to marvel not just at the survival, but at the original human skill.
The exhibition was not an end, but a beginning, a promise of more stories waiting in the dark.
They gathered, bound by the shared memory of depth. The story was polished with each retelling, warmed by time and friendship.
Above ground, life was ephemeral, seasonal. Below, in the dark,
the machine became a monument. Children touched the metal that had dared the pressure, connecting to adventure.
the first piece, the pioneer. It led the way out of the dark
and into the light of history. The captain's words set the tone. It was not a victory, but a respectful negotiation with the deep.
Science traced the leather back to its source, linking a 20th century cow to a 21st century database.
Each morning, the sun found them again, these emissaries from the eternal night, and warmed them with its light.
In their glass, two worlds met, the bustling present and the still recovered.
The sea gives, and the sea takes. And sometimes, if we are very careful and very lucky, it gives back.